Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forests that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn in Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
All right, good evening, S4. And yeah, tonight's a special edition, pre-record. But it's information I wanted to get put out. I've been meaning to do this for, well, quite some time. And I'm sitting outside. It's warm out. You're going to hear my chickens in the background and maybe my kids every once in a while. But, well, we're into 2017. And this is the window that, according to some sources, say is supposed to be the beginning of some very interesting times, and that's just putting it mildly. And this isn't for fear mongering, this isn't for scaring anybody. I don't want to scare anybody, because you shouldn't be scared. You should live life like you normally do. Just keep an eye on the sky. And I'm going to give you some tips how to prepare. So, for those that haven't heard of the Alien Races book, I encourage y'all to go in the Forest Moon Paranormal's library and download it and read it. It's free. Everything we do is free. But Dante Centauri is the one who actually translated the book from, I believe it was translated from Russian to Portuguese, and he translated it to English. And I like to validate things before I put them out to listeners and the best I can. And like I always tell you, do your own research. Don't go by, one or two person's word. Go by your own intuition. And so they found a whole bunch of 52 boxes exactly of classified material in the Alien Races book, and 4 other books were in this material. And what validates one of the things that validates this book to me is I've done research in UFOs and worked with abductees for over 20 years, and a lot of the races that were in this book actually, some had crashed in, one in particular had crashed in Virginia, Brazil, and that race was in the book. Now, if this was a hoax, it would be one hell of a premeditated, elaborate hoax. To me, it's not hoaxed at all. He didn't. He was offered like $14,000 to publish this book, and he turned it down and said no, it needs to be free. And he's still, to this day, he's gone underground. He's not doing anything for the public anymore. And he still does everything for free up until this point. He's had 3 different YouTube channels and over 700 videos, with not a penny to his, to be earned from any of it. So, I'm going to basically read you straight from his book about 2017. So in the book, actually 2017 is supposed to be a race that is mentioned in the book. They've only contacted humans one time, and that's in the USSR in 1935. According to reports, they spoke some kind of a Slavic dialect. They left a written message with about 10 sentences. They come from the galaxy UDFJ 3954624, which is estimated distance from Earth is about 13.2 billion light years away. They travel by using what other alien races call wormholes, which allows them to bend space. So on the original ARB, 9 of the sentences left by the race are blacked out. The only one that is not is 2017 to 2022. So according to reports, they were tall, had blonde, long hair, and smell like flowers. So tonight, I'm actually not going to go into a whole lot of reptilian or greys or mantids. That'll be another show. And actually, if you look at the 100 alien races that we discussed on the previous show earlier in the year, we did a lot of reptilian and gray discussion. Now, most of your abductees that we work with today deal with the reptilians, the grays, and the mantids. Those are the 3 main abduction races. There are 16 different races that do abduct for different reasons, but the main ones we deal with here in America are those 3. Now, the ones I want to hit the most tonight are actually the Mater, the Velash, the Anakin, the Charistus, and a few others that are different alliances within those races. Basically, this is a good versus evil war that's going to be going on for the next 5 years and in our skies. And I'm telling you right now, UFO sightings have been on the rise. Now, is it because people are more open to talking about it? I don't think so. Because even today, when I do promotions for Forest Moon Paranormal, we still get scoffed, and people are shaking their heads going, there's no such thing as UFOs. And the media, which is paid for and bought by the U.S. government, who actually work for the Velash, the Russians work, the Russian land is actually a safe haven for the Anakin. The United States, however, falls in with the Velash, or the Vlash, which are a very violent race, very manipulative, like to kill. And talking about the reptilians for a second, here's a list of American politicians with connections to the reptilians. And you'll recognize a few names. One is the former U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. One is former Vice President Dick Cheney. One is former President George H.W. Bush. One is former President George W. Bush. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. And former President Bill Clinton. Imagine that. People that you know and have seen and worked with, or dealt with on a political level, or not. So, what I want to bring to your attention is you're not going to see UFOs, little flying discs in the sky. Sometimes you will. But watch the clouds, because most of these ships shapeshift. They're hidden in clouds. They are the clouds. Watch how they move. Watch for the trails. A lot of the earthquakes that we see aren't natural. They're from craft that were shot down. There's basically a war going on between the Charistus and the Anakim, which are the good ones. They actually have ties to the human race. And their enemies are the Vlash, the Mater, and their allies. So I'm going to start off with a Mark Twain quote, which is, "The two most important days of your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why." Do you know why you're here? Start meditating. So there's a lot of different theories. I'm not going to go into my personal, which one I've alliance with, I guess you could say. But if you listen to, and first and foremost, the opinions, my opinions and views on S4 don't reflect that of Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Radio is our umbrella. We fall in with Dave Scott, and we kind of talk about things that don't get talked about on the show. And more or less our perceptions, our research. These are things I've seen on YouTube, things I've researched on the internet, things I've read in books, things I've personally experienced. And I take that with a military background, and there you go. There's our show. And of course, we have Corey Ruiz, generally my co-host, and Seth Kinsey, who's in New York, and Eric Markham, our scientist, who jumps in when we have a scientific kind of show, or if he's available. So, if you listen to Spaced Out Radio, you hear a lot of channelers, guests on the show, and they channel aliens. And the common denominator I see, religion to me is nothing but control of the human race. You've got the Vatican, which is manipulated and controlled by both the Mater and the reptilians. And if you don't have religion, you can't control the people. So, going by some of the channelers that have talked to the aliens say they worship and believe in a goddess. And that comes up in the Alien Races book too. So there's a feminine divine. And my personal belief, you have to have balance, whether it's black and white, dark and day and night, good and evil, masculine and feminine. You can't have one without the other. It's yin and yang. So you got Christians and the Muslims. They only believe in a masculine, only a God. You got some that kind of step outside the box a little bit, and they believe in God and Mother Mary, or Mary Magdalene, as a feminine divine. Pagans. You got some that believe in a god and a goddess. You got the feminist side of goddess only, and I don't believe in that. Now, according to some theories here, there was a feminine divine. She was one of many other deities. She created many other alien races, along with the human race, and Earth, and other planets. And she was revered, she was worshipped, she was seen as a mother figure. Not by all of them. As time went on, some of the alien races turned their backs on her. That's where you start seeing the Vlash, the Mater. Now, I'm really honestly not sure if she created them or if they were around along the time of most of these deities. I'm really not sure. But the other deities saw these worlds and beings, and she created, and they were indifferent. whatever. Some of them might have scoffed, but she saw them as good. She created us, she created the other alien races as being peaceful, not being warlike, not being negative, not being evil. So all races and civilizations started out peaceful, but then many turned their backs on her and waged war against each other. Now, there's another theory out there, and that's that the Anakim, along with 22 other races, manipulated the DNA of the humans to spur our civilization. Now, which one you want to go with, that's whichever one makes the most sense to you. 22 other races combined their DNA with the Anakim, and we were never monkeys. That's evolution. The human race was never a primate. And it's not that I just don't like the idea we came from primates, it's that it doesn't make sense. We're going to get into Bigfoot as well, because there's also theories and stories behind Bigfoot, and where Bigfoot came from. So basically, some of these races work for and with the goddess, the other ones work against her and her allies. And that's what we're going to get into. So, depending on which side of the fence you fall on, either way you look at it, the Anakim follow the goddess, work with the goddess, and are here for the protection of humans, which is why they battle and fight the Vlash and the Mater. So let's talk about the Anakim real quick. So the Anakim have a ship called the Nibiru. Some say it's planet Nibiru. She comes around every 2,500 years. I always thought that too. But actually, the Nibiru is the name of the Anakim ship. And if you look at it, it doesn't come around. It's always moving around. So the Anakim resemble humans, but are taller. They're 8 foot tall and more muscular. When they first visited Earth, there were already races here. Some malevolent, with the Anakim defeated and became the most powerful race here. They genetically modified humans at the time we were primates. I don't agree with that. As a means of slaves at their disposal. They created us to be slaves. At the time, Samael and Lilith were the Anakim king and queen. They were not aware that there were reptilians here. They only cooperated with one other race, and that was the Zeta Reticuli, not the Greys that you think of. They left the earth but created the Zeta subspecies, which became the Egyptian pharaohs. Now that did happen. Our pharaohs that you see are a combination. They were actually Anakim, and every once in a while the Vlash hybrids would come in and kill them off, and it would become a Vlash, and you could see the differences. But you'd see a Vlash pharaoh. They don't look like the pharaohs you see in other pictures. And then here come the Anakim or the Christus, and they would kill off the Vlash pharaoh, and another Anakim or Christa pharaoh would take over. So there's a whole lot of different variances to this story. So I want to stop real quick. I want to talk about the Council of Five, because the Council of Five, if you look through different alien races, if you've done your own research, you'll see information about the Council of Five. The Council of Five consists of 5 races. It used to be known as the Council of 9. Now I still haven't found what happened to the other 4 races to make it up 9. But the 5 races that consist of today's Council of 5 are the Orela, the Egero, the Jinvo, the Raiden, and the Emerther. Little is known about these 5 races, although the Emerther is the most important race, not just to the Council, but to all races. They are related to the Slipsy-Red, but much older and more advanced. They were instrumental in founding the Council. They met with President Eisenhower in 3 different occasions, and also met with 2 high-ranking USSR leaders in 3 different occasions. They tried to meet with President Nixon, but he refused. This council used to be the Council of Nine. They have been protecting Earth and humans for as long as there have been records, for millions of years. So the council last met on Earth in 1944. They were supposed to come here last 10 days of August of 2013. And if you look at the last 10 days of 2013 in August, you'll see a lot of earthquakes. You'll see a lot of earth changes, weather changes, things of that nature. And that's because they came down here. So it's also noted they've been watching the evolution of mankind ever since the Anunnaki tampered with our DNA. And have been protecting us as they see humans joining the alien races with enlightenment and development. So that's Council of Five. They may or may not come back in. And again, this is part one. And I got impatient, basically. I wanted to get this information out. And this is part one of probably a part two, maybe even a part three. And maybe a month. Give me a month and get more research done, and I'll try not to duplicate because I have these notes printed out. So the pharaohs, getting back to them, all look the same but one. These were left in charge by the Anakim. The Zeta Reticulans, not the Greys, were allies of the Anakim. They were left here to watch over the human development as pharaohs. But what they didn't know, like I said a few minutes ago, the reptilians had infiltrated the pharaohs by shapeshifting as temple priests, soldiers, etc., and occasionally destroying the Zetas. One of the most famous Zetas to rule Egypt was Cleopatra VII, Philopator, or simply Cleopatra. Her alien name was Cleopatra. She was intelligent and a real leader. She was killed August 30 BC by two reptilians disguised as envoys of Octavian Pentower, son of King Ramses II, was killed by the matron. His mummy was found to contain 50% non-human DNA as he was a Zeta. The Egyptian government has since moved his body from place to place, only allowing certain individuals to study it. In 2012, these quote-unquote investigators declared the mummy as normal and closed the investigation. Now, here's where stuff's going to get scary, and I'll get back to the pharaohs here in a second, but a lot of these races that we're going to be talking about, you won't see as normal because they can cloak, they can shapeshift. Some of these races actually look like the alien from the movie Predator. How do you fight that? Well, carefully. Again, use your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, go by your gut. Most of these aliens bleed. If you have firearms, if you have weapons, they will bleed and they will die. We'll get to that. I'm not saying go alien hunting. Just be prepared if they come down here. The war going on is not our war. There's another race that stays cloaked. And when they're around humans, they incite fear. They don't mean to. They're actually a benevolent race. There are a lot of friendly races out there. Not all of them are evil and malevolent. But that particular race, it strikes fear in humans. Just one of their side effects. There's other races that you don't want. When they do show themselves, it's too late. You're dead. And again, like I said, the war that's going on has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the Vlash, the Mater, and their war against the Anakim and the Charistas and their allies. They have a lot of allies. And we're kind of like kindred with them, which is why they're here to protect us. So, other pharaohs targeted by enemy races was Amenhotep III of reptilian lineage, Akhenaten, also known as Amenhotep IV, killed by Zeta human hybrids disguised as priests. Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, was poisoned by Zeta human hybrids. The poison used was also non-Earth and was so powerful that in 1922, when the tomb was discovered by Howard Carter, most of his crew suffered from inhaling the poison, which led to dementia, diseases, to sudden death. This led to the legend of the curse of King Tut's tomb. It was actually alien. So, and some people that hear this show are going to think, oh, you're just a crackpot. Well, do some homework, do some research, and think outside the box. Because that's, if it sounds far-fetched, it may or may not be outside the box. So Alexander the Great was used by the Anakim to destroy a portal or stargate used by the Mater and other malevolent races. He had a list of accomplishments he was to do. He was human, but he was manipulated by an alien agenda. He died in June of 323 BC in Babylon, Samaria, again poisoned by the Mater. So jumping, and I'm going to be jumping around here based on my notes, but creatures such as Mothman were brought here by the malevolent aliens to 1, fight and kill the good creatures brought in by the good aliens, 2, to cause confusion between religions and spiritualism and cause general division between the human race. That's where the stories of demon and angel battles come in. So now we're going to jump, because Christianity is very much Mater and Vlash dominated. It's dominated to control. And, you hear some people talk, well, Jesus was an alien. And actually, he was. So according to one of the books, Jesus' real name was Dor Charistus. And pre-crucifixion, he was actually the Christus race. And he was teaching peace. Well, they didn't like peace. So he was crucified. Now, had he been crucified and not resurrected, that would have been the end of Christianity. There wouldn't be a Christianity right now. And, well, religion is dominated and used as a control factor of the human race. So the Vlash couldn't let that happen, so they actually sent in one of their own hybrids to resurrect and carry on Christianity. So the resurrected Jesus Christ was actually a Vlash hybrid. Now, according to the book, Christ was an alien, was killed on the cross, and the aliens came down and took him from the grave 5 hours later. 24 hours later, there was an alien war. And we'll get to that. But looking back, so there's a census ordered by Caesar Augustus. Right around the time of Jesus' birth, yet there are no records showing a Jesus was born. And media and historians blame time and records destroyed, yet other records are available at the same time period. The Vlash and the Mater at this time were also at war with each other. Now you got to understand, the Vlash and the Mater are actually enemy races, but when it benefits one another, they're allies. When they get bored and there's nothing else going on, they actually attack each other. Ain't that something? So the woman named Mary Magdalene in the Bible, her real name is Farah Kafik in the alien book 48 Weeks. She was from Marmarikaha in modern-day eastern Libya. So she is described as doing everything Mary did in the Bible. So Farah was dark-skinned and Dor Charistus was fair-skinned and protected her like a lion protects his kill. The movie The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston was based perfectly on the depiction of the alien race book in 48 Weeks. Right down to the letter to include in the movie the name Rachel is on one of the buildings in the movie, which is the name the creator goddess takes on when she is in physical form on this planet. This is also written in the handwritten notes in the ARB. The story of Farah is a symbolic right down to the way Whitney Houston died in this life, in real life. And this is documented as well. All right. Like I said, we're bouncing around, but the day Crystal died on the cross, the earthquake that happened was due to a large Anakim ship that crashed after being shot down by Lucifer. Now, Lucifer, otherwise known as Lucifer, not the devil, just a very, very evil, very vindictive, very violent alien. is very, trying to think of the word, trying even how to describe it, but very anti-Anakin and Crystal. Now, he shot down the Anakin ship that was going after Dora Calrissian, Jesus Christ. The rocks where the Anakin ship crashed are still blackened today in the Moktesh Roman crater. Now that's validated. I mean, you can go to this location and actually find the spot that's blackened where the alien ship crashed. Alright, so like I said, the Catholic Church has been controlled by the reptilian race, Vlash, and their friends for hundreds of years. But back hundreds of years ago, there was a lot of infighting as the Anakin was killing Vlash hybrids, who were popes, and replacing them with their own. So who's our current pope controlled by? Pope Clemens II is the only one that was pope for under a year. He was poisoned and his body was returned to the cathedral in Bamberg, Germany. I've seen it. I've been to Bamberg. So let's talk about a race. Orson Welles was the first one chosen to the country towards disclosure. So, not to be serious, but to discredit future UFO sightings and activity. So, in 1940s, started the murders settling in Los Angeles. Elizabeth Short, otherwise known as Black Dahlia, was the most infamous one. This time period is known by the LAPD as the Reaping, and they still do, as the killings have never stopped. So what did the 1940s have to do with crime sprees? Timeline of events. The first sighting of the Rogues was in the 1700s. Jack the Ripper was 1888. Subliminal messages on radio and movies was pre-1938. Orson Welles' alien invasion was 1938. Death of the Black Dahlia and what the LAPD called the Reaping, and the Battle of LA was 1942. And more recently, which we'll get to, is the death of a girl named Elisa in 2013, which has ties with all this. So it began in 1933. A very strange and dangerous race arrived on Earth and permanently installed themselves off the coast of California and Italy near Venice. Less than 2 years later in Italy, the RS-33 cabinet, the agency in charge of all alien investigation, contacts, and relations, immediately reported this to Mussolini. Mussolini then called his son-in-law, Galeazzo Ciano, the Italian consul in Shanghai. In 1936, Ciano became Italy's foreign minister and head of the RS-33. He traveled to the U.S. and secretly met with John Nance Garner, Vice President Roosevelt, to discuss the alien race off the coast of California and Italy. They had already attempted contact with this race and knew there was no reasoning with the so they started creating stories about them to discredit future sightings. One rare photo was captured of this race in Alaska in the 1930s. In 1937, this race increased its presence by starting 2 new bases off the coast of France and Germany. This was discussed between Ciano, Hitler, and Daladier during the Munich Agreement meetings in September of 1938. Ciano coined the term for this race, the Rogue. Eventually, it was found that this race had been on Earth a long time, and people had reported them as far back as the 1700s. Australia, 1793. Australia, 1861. Australia, the 1940s, and Oregon. Their craft looks like a disc with an antenna on top. Basically, what we see is a hat. March 1954 in Rouen, France, New Zealand, and finally LA in 1942. Their bases are all underwater, and they don't interact with other races. Well, we'll get to that, because they actually did interact with the Vlash. Little is known about them, but they choose and kill people randomly, and they are extremely violent. We don't know their purpose. When they kill, authorities are told to leave the case alone, and those cases are closed as suicide, accidental death, or simply unsolved. So they are almost active January through March of each year, and that's when you look for patterns. January to March of each year is when you'll see unsolved cases, suicides, accidental deaths, things like that. And we'll get to this, but they come in the form of shadows. These are the shadows you see that are wearing a hat or they have a cape. Now, the hat and cape they wear aren't actually hats and capes. They're actually the device they use to stay as a shadow. People in the know call them the Rogue. Others call them shadow people. So here's where Jack the Ripper comes in. July 27th of 1888, a round object described as a pot lid was spotted over Reading, England. Same, November 3rd of 1888, Jack the Ripper, part of this alien race, his shadow is described by Frederick Aberline, Scotland Yard's inspector in charge. There's three types of rogues, or shadow people. 1, the shadow person. 2, the shadow people. And 3 is the shadow animal. The shadow person is the leader of a team of shadows. The height is 5.5 to 8 foot. Sometimes wears a device on his head mistaken for a hat. Shadow people are much shorter, 3 to 5 foot, and where there is one, expect more. They usually travel in a group of 10. These are the ones that appear to wear a hood and a robe, which again is some form of device. Their vision seems like that from the movie Predator, their technology to become invisible. The shadow animals are only come out at night and are physical in appearance, but because it's night, they seem like shadows. They're not normal, quote-unquote, animals. The Shadow, 1930 to 1954, was a Rogue reference. That's the movie. So Jack the Ripper references say 5 women were killed. The official version accepts 5 but changes to 4. Probably 6, possibly 8. All 5 were killed at night and outdoors, except for Mary Jane Kelly. There were no screams. Same thing in Los Angeles during the 1940s, the reaping. Victims can't speak. They become confused and disoriented and their eyesight is affected. Essentially, it's a poison that has the effects of chlorohydrate, which is a sedative, clonazepam, anti-panic drug, GHB, depressant, ketamine, which is an anesthetic, and rohypnol, which is a sedative 10 times more than Valium. That's the effects that these guys' poison has. Look up Hotel Cecil, where Elisa was found dead. That's the girl that was killed in 2013. There's a company registered on the same address, the Invisible Light Agency. They have a fake login screen on their website, and Anthony View is mentioned. He now works at Raytheon Missile Systems, a company that develops weapons. So, Ronald Reagan, before he was California governor, had a dramatic sighting of UFOs coming up the California coast. Steven Spielberg did a special showing of E.T. at the White House for Reagan and his group, and afterwards Reagan stood up and thanked him, and without smiling said, "Several people in this room know that what's in your movie is 100% true." Interesting. So now back to the rogue race. They made no contact with humans or other races until the mid-'80s, and then they contacted the Vlach, who in turn put them in contact with the American and Chinese. In early '86, Gorbachev proposed banning all ballistic missiles. Reagan instead wanted to continue research on the Strategic Defense Initiative, or the SDI, but they agreed to meet later in the year in Hofoi, Reykjavik, Iceland, to reach an agreement. They met in Iceland, 11 to 12 October of '86. Their talks collapsed at the last minute, but progress was achieved, which resulted in the '87 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, otherwise known as Star Wars. Imagine that. There's also a photo that was taken when they signed the photo showing Reagan was not alone. With him was Victor View, which I just mentioned a few minutes ago, an American Vietnamese scientist who worked on the X-ray laser development, Department of SDI, as well as a shadow person. Then, September 21st of 1987, during a UN summit, he was quoted, "Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world." Less than 3 months later, December 8th, both parties were signing the IRNFT. Alright, getting back to Elisa, the girl that was killed mysteriously in 2013 by shadows. So her father took her from Canada to Pokfulam, Hong Kong, specifically the Hua Fu estate, hottest spot in Hong Kong for alien and supernatural activity. While there, he reported Elisa as missing. Now, 24 hours later, he reported she was found at a relative's house. So Dante thinks she was a hybrid. She had hybrid characteristics. So, what are hybrid characteristics? They have excellent eyesight or hearing, phenomenal artistic ability, above average intelligence, or unique physiologic and anatomical abilities. So on January 31st, 2013, Eliza went missing. Some say she was bipolar, which led to her quote-unquote suicide or accidental death. Her parents and many friends dispute this. She had a boyfriend. His name was Michael View. Remember that last name? He worked for Raytheon. So in this whole puzzle, we have Victor Vu, a scientist who worked on Reagan's Star Wars, Anthony Vu, former employee of the Invisible Light Agency 3D, and other realities expert, and presently supervisor at Raytheon Missile Systems. Michael View, Elisa's boyfriend, and also employee at Raytheon. So you see a pattern there. All right, so Torino, Italy, and we're jumping here, I know. It's an alien hotspot due to location and other reasons. 100 BC, Julius Obsequens reported a round object like a globe that flew from west to east. 91 BC, similar report. 42 BC, he reports a sound like a missile rose from with a great noise from the earth and soared into the sky. So Torino was Italy's first capital city in 1861 and home to the House of Savoy, Italy's royal family. And this comes into play because you've heard me mention the Order of the Black Swan before, and this is a little more detail to that. The Torini were an ancient Celto-Ligurian Alpine people. They are rarely mentioned in history. 1030 AC, Torino. 12 girls were abducted by aliens. They belonged to 3 different families. As time went by, the families gave up hope with the exception of Felicia Salvo, mother of Monica, which was a 12-year-old missing girl. Her and her 2 sons traveled everywhere looking for an answer. The 11th century was the darkest period of the Middle Ages, but trade slowly picked up and Felicia met with quote-unquote traders from the eastern lands. When they were in Genova, who described the heavenly creatures who came down to get the daughters of man, aliens. They also told her about the mater. She returned to Torino, and in 1034 AD, the 3 families created the Ordine del Signo Nero, or the Order of the Black Swan. The families made a pact of revenge. They would fight the abductors 1,000 generations for each of the missing girls. They have just started. So why the Black Swan? Because in Torino, the Black Swan is used as guard dogs. Just over 500 years later, in 1550 AD, 2 families moved from Sicily to Torino, having had the same experience and joined the order. So those 5 families still run the order today. Now, I've been researching and I've been searching for the Order of the Black Swan for a couple months now. Not a long time. I just found out about them. And they're very hidden. They've killed thousands of aliens. And we need to get more people involved for this 5-year span that we're entering. So those 5 families still run the order today. Some rich, some not, but the mission goes on. Torino is where the headquarters is, and they have added people from other families. It's one organization that's been fighting the Mater since 1034 AD. Thousands died doing it, and only a few dozen aliens have died during this period. And these guys follow and serve the goddess I was talking about earlier. So it's not in my notes, but I kind of know the story already from reading it and hearing it numerous times. But Farah, who is the woman that the original Jesus was talking to and working with, she got pregnant, and she had twins. Now, we haven't gotten to it, but when Jesus died on the cross, he was Christus. Now, as I said earlier in the show, had he died, there would be no Christianity. And the Mater and the Vlash couldn't let that happen. That's how they control people. That's how they control humans. So they had to carry on Christianity. So in order to keep humans in check, so Jesus was resurrected from the cross, but he wasn't resurrected. It wasn't Dora Crystal. It was actually a Vlash hybrid to carry on the name. Even his followers noticed he was different. And he he was sent to make sure the twins were born, because the twins were actually a threat to the survival of the Vlach. And they were taken and trained off this planet. And I believe I have notes on that later on. So these twins were protected, but they were killed in Italy by an attack by the Mater. So the two most important things for the Vlach and the Sons and Daughters of the Anakim, we'll call them the SDA, are their hybrid programs. They fight in the skies. You see that. We see that through heat lightning, which is not heat lighting, the heat lightning sometimes. But the hybrids are on the ground here. And Hitler, for example, was Mater. So they have a larger human population through the hybrid program. Both have different motives. The Vlach create hundreds of hybrids and then just dump them off on the native population to fend for themselves, while the SDA creates smaller numbers and integrate them into the population with a life story, ancestry, and let them live as natives. Now, technically speaking, that's the smartest thing to do. So there's different kinds of hybrids. Some are enforcers, informants, breeders, rulers, etc. They can be created by mixing with the natives or created from scratch depending on the situation or purpose. Then there's the leader hybrids. They come from a very special and unique bloodline, such as the 4 hybrids that were left here on Earth, descendants of Dor Caristal. These are called nobiles. The mission changes the kind of hybrids to be used: diplomacy, mediation, litigation, all-out war, breeding, repopulation, and the harvest, which is only used by the Vlach. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the harvest is utilized by spreading chemtrails. The hybrids are also seen as unpredictable. While some stay loyal to their creators, others become defiant. So the 4 hybrids that were here, that I talked about earlier, they were protected and accompanied by the real Knights Templar. That was the Knights Templar's job, was to protect the 4 hybrids. Now jumping, in 1408, a new Earth alien race decided it's time to establish permanent presence on the Earth, and they landed in Russia, Vrance, Romania, Makachakala, and Skopje in the Kosovo region. And in one of the landing sites, a landslide occurred, killing hundreds of humans. It was the Kilimat APR race. Now, they're almost immediately spotted by the Vlach, who sprayed the area with a product that would kill them when mixed with oxygen and carbon. Only one escaped, all the rest were killed, but he's captured by the SDA, or the Sons and Daughters of the Anakim. He is also killed to prevent disease of humans, but his organs were harvested, as they are known to live 800 to 900 years. So the SDA, seeing there's a new interest in this planet, started building Russia as an empire. The plan was to put it into motion for 25 to 30 years, then circa 1435, the Vlach released thousands of their own hybrids, all divided into separate groups, each led by a Mater. Human in appearance, but all alien inside. The war was balanced, but the region was more divided than ever, so the SDA pulled out the organs of the KR and created a mega hybrid. These were designed to be leaders. 1, they were highly intelligent. 2, they had amazing oratory skills. And 3, they were brave. With a hybrid human army, they fought the Vlach Mater and won, eventually creating the empire which lasts a day, but always under constant threat. Which is why I told you earlier, the United States is Vlach controlled. Russia is actually Anakim controlled. The most important SDA underground bases are still around today, which is why you saw Russia invading Ukraine a few years ago. Ivan III Vasilevich started the empire, also known as Ivan the Great. He was killed in 1507 by Lucifer. The SDA used his organs to create a hybrid which turned out to be the number 1 of the 4 hybrids, which he went by many names and lived, such as Michael I of the First Romanov. His real name was Ivan the Terrible. The main SDA base on Earth today is in a mountain in a region named Odessa. Now we're jumping again. I know we're jumping around. Hopefully you're catching bits and pieces enough to do your own research on. So the Telos Project. That's military technology, liquid armor, vital sign sensors, cures wounds, has heaters, etc., night vision, computers, and it's all alien technology. Now, let's talk about the refugees for a second. Not the ones here per se, but the refugees flowing in every country. They aren't fleeing; they're invading. No, I'm not even talking religion. I'm not talking Muslim. I'm not talking Christianity. I'm not talking religion at all. I'm talking about refugees in general. But by theory, some of them are Vlash Mater hybrids and humans that are brought in to fight during the 2017-2022 window. Now, before you scoff and think this is all a load of crap, do some research. Tell me what you find. I'm curious what you do find. Some of it does sound like crap. I'll admit that. But my sources are pretty valid. People are awakening and people are seeing more in the skies today than they have before. I see it weekly when I get my updates. I also see it through Forest Moon Paranormal with our caseload we're getting. And with all this going on, I've said in early shows that we didn't see a difference between a veil when it came down to, Halloween and the veil was supposed to be thin. We didn't see an influx in cases. And so I always thought, well, maybe there's no veil. Well, recently we heard through another case that we were doing from some fairies that there is a veil, and that veil is getting thin. Now, what we've seen a trend in is an influx in fairies attacking clients as well, which is kind of an indicator that there is a veil, it is getting thinner, and then it makes you wonder why. So let's talk about ships. The Christus have lower technology in their ships. It's not as advanced, which is a disadvantage, or slower, but they do use wormhole technology. Let's talk about humans real quick. The pineal gland is a cell phone to your soul. So the sun is bad for your pineal gland. You're only actually supposed to be in the sun 2 to 3 hours. Too much sun causes the pineal gland to shrink. So jumping again, the Anakim also introduced the humans to the written word. Reading, writing, etc., because reading makes both sides of the brain work and develop. The Vlash introduced the TV to dumb down the humans. So you can see there's a conflict here. The Anakim are trying to make us progress so we can fight, whereas the Vlash want us to be stupid. They want religion, control the people, make them sheeple, make them dumb, give them a TV, give them video games. The Industrial Revolution was actually Vlash created as well, because they wanted us slaves to work harder, or to work easier, get more done. So let's give them factories. Let's give them a car so they can go faster. Things like that. Now, here's what's interesting, and I just found this information out a couple days ago, having to do with the Titanic. So in 1912, 3 ships sunk in the same area as the Titanic. You don't hear about this. The Swedish ship, Ängelholm Bay, lost radio contact after its captain saw an oval-shaped object in the sky, hovering portside at 1300 hours, April 13th, a day before the Titanic sunk. He then said the object had landed 1,000 feet away on the water, and then the ship lost contact. The wreckage of the ship was found in 2011 off the Greenland coast with 6 laser-like holes that were found in the hull. They didn't have lasers in 1912. Where did they come from? So 1530 hours, 14 April, 2 days later, day after Titanic, captain of the Russian trawler, the Podomzhu Zhanath, radioed to say he was under attack from a strange-looking airship with the ability to fly above, on top of, and under the water. The craft is firing deadly rays of light. His last radio transmission was picked up by a ham radio operator in Iceland. It never reached its destination. Then you got the Greek trawler, Constantine limped into Newfoundland shortly before dawn, April 15th, less than 24 hours after the sinking of the Titanic. Captain Aris Nicolaidis reported his ship had been attacked by a strange craft that melted his ship. 16 crew members gave the identical story, but all focus was on the Titanic. You know, and that kind of reminds me of the Maury Island incident here in Washington versus Roswell, New Mexico. Both of those UFO incidents happened a couple days apart, but all the media attention went to Roswell. Same thing. They pick and choose what they're going to have the media attention on. In this case, it was Titanic. Even though they had 3 other ships that were attacked in the same area, same time frame. Many survivors of the Titanic report seeing UFOs before, during, and after the Titanic sunk. Anna White was in lifeboat number 6. She saw three bright lights in the sky around a glowing object. Winnie Coates and her 3 sons witnessed strange lights and objects in the sky after all the flares were burnt out. American astronomer George Harris, on the day of the death of the liner, April 14, 1912, reported a dark object with a diameter of 80 kilometers moving from the moon towards Earth. Also, Elizabeth Stansfield and her husband were walking on the pier on the same day in the port of Belfast and reported they saw a huge ball of light sink into the ocean, which was reported by the newspaper The Guardian. In the log of the Norwegian ship Kusken, April 15th, while in the North Atlantic, the captain saw a huge crater in the ocean, like a giant whirlpool. The other fact about the Titanic is the matter of the 3 holes in the starboard side below the waterline that seem to have been made with laser precision. These are just things to make you think. So a new race for you to look up. Mefeen. M-E-F-E-E-N. This race, even the Vlash fear. Now I'm telling you folks, there's a pecking order here. It's my pecking order. So you've got the Greys, the Reptilians, and the Mantids. We fight them. Our Astro team fights them. They can be defeated. We haven't had to encounter the Mater or the Vlash yet. But I dread the day that we ever have to fight the Mater and the Vlash, because they're just completely vindictive. But if there's a race that these guys fear, yeah, they're the ones to worry about. And that's why kind of why we're doing this show, just to make you aware. So the Mefeen, there are thousands already here in place. They have 100,000 ships strong, and the first ones have started arriving, and that was in September of 2016, not long ago. They come from the constellation we call Scorpius. So here's a tip for you. Draw the Eye of Horus on your door. It keeps them out. Remember that, the Eye of Horus. Put that on your door. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to be seen. So September 4th of 2016, their biggest ship passed closest to our sun. The Christus have fought them twice and won. Also, look into the race Krull, K-R-U-L-L. They look reptilian, but they're not reptilian. They come from Andromeda. They're merciless with prisoners. They're also here. Their ships are slower as they don't have the high technology of other races. They can't use wormholes for transport. They don't have a Marubin, which is used for technology that makes Marubin used in space travel, stabilization, so their ships can't handle gravity. So if you see a ship that's kind of wobbly, that's probably these guys. So to make up for these downfalls, they're masters of cloaking. Their ships can cloak. All these ships can cloak. That's why I say watch the clouds. You cannot see, hear, or feel them. No one knows what they call themselves, so the Christus call them Krolk, which means darker. The first actual group of them is arriving here early of 2018. So there's a battleship called Arkara. One ship can carry 5 million. That's half their population. Look at race Tingri Tingri. They use the Arkara. They also have a smaller ship they call Lamunda. Another craft called Arkara serves as a transport and battle. So there's a race called Tanzani that uses heavy technology. These guys are assholes. They're known for destroying wormholes after they use them, or booby-trapping them, so that the next race that comes through them dies. Other times they change the temperature inside the wormhole so the ship comes out, but those that are inside the ship die a slow and painful death from basically cooking to death. More than 20,000 Callistus have died this way. They're also known for destroying other planets' suns. Their ships are pretty much indestructible. They also land on planets and terrorize inhabitants just to analyze the reaction. They've also been the cause of many natural disasters on Earth, and they shapeshift. So, George Orwell was a Callistus hybrid from 1903 to 1950. These are just little tidbits to throw out towards you. So, Race SMAD, SMAD, only has 6 battleships. They're Callistus allies. They're the good guys. In 1999 is when they allied with the Callistus. Their ships look like pyramids. So Race Saladin, they look like a cross of the Tenzin and the Alien and Predator. They like human meat. They have about 10,000 battleships. Race Mifrati, and these are races, I'm bringing them up because they actually aren't in the ARB, the Alien Races book. Some of them are, not all of them. But the main battleship of the race Mifrati is called Lomotino. They seem to be a race that can appear in human form. This race stays under the ocean most of the time when they're on Earth, and they're Callistus allies. Now their ship looks diamond-shaped. These are important things to remember. Remember the shape of the craft that I'm telling you. The race Malachite are Vlash allies. Their ship is called Komen. They had 10 of these ships, and now they only have 9. Imagine that. Ain't that cool? I love it when I see numbers dwindle. So there's a race called Starve. These guys, nobody knows what their real name is. They've been named Starve by the Callistus. They're also flesh eaters. They don't say anything. The only time they did, they said, "We come from above." Their main battleship is called Liller. Many varieties of ships. The big one looks egg-shaped. The Callistus have unfinished business with these assholes. So now we have the race Vinnit, Vinnyt. They are Callistus allies, but too many different ships to mention. The mother ships look similar to the ships that were in District 9, the movie. And then they have smaller drones. Now their drones are cool, because they're used for killing Vlash and Mater hybrids when there's too many of them. They also have a PSYOP technology that makes you change your mind. Technology is good sometimes when they're on your side. So now you have the race Malin, Mallyn. They're the size of the palm of your hand. They don't need guns. They handle themselves without even touching you. They're a very ancient race. They have 2 planets. The ones born on the one planet are very small. On the other planet, they are very big. They're Callistus allies, and they're very protective, which means they're very protective of you and I, because anyone that is an ally of Callistus protects the humans. Remember that. So the race Algorulik I've talked about before on the other race show that we did, but their battleship looks similar to the Vlash, because they sold their technology to the Vlash, so their ships look similar. I'm going to try, because I'm actually doing a presentation both this Saturday for training, as well as in Canada at Dave Scott's Caribou Paracon, September 29th to the 1st of October. Remember that. I'll be doing the alien race lecture. So I'll have pictures of depictions of what they look like anyway. But the Algorulik are called, also known as the builders, because they actually build what they need, whether it's a ship, whether it's things on a planet, that kind of thing. So they come from the constellation Sculptor, derived from an ancient race of reptilian that has since gone extinct. Now they're not related to the reptilians. not the reptilians we hear about today. They specialize in building ships and other devices needed for deep space traveling, because they're also space travelers and always looking for raw material. They can live up to 230 years. They're last seen in Tokyo, Japan, 2005. So, in the past and now, there are over 40 alien races, plus the Vlash and Mater hybrids, that are always searching for human children because they drink their blood. Children's blood is the purest to its original form, now contaminated by diet and lifestyle. There are 80,000 proteins in the blood versus 20 to 35 proteins in adult blood. The reason I bring this up is because, like I said, I'm doing a second part to this series because I'm not done with my research. And where I concluded with my research before I started getting notes together for this show, there was a whole influx of child disappearances all throughout Europe and America back in the 1800s and 1900s. And if you look at missing and exploited children's websites today, there's thousands missing daily. Now, taking into account, some of these kids ran away. Some of these kids were abducted by parents, that kind of thing. But that doesn't even come close to just randomly missing kids either. And if you take into account that a lot of these alien races drink children's blood because it's pure, well, I think you have part of your answer right there. And as morbid as it sounds, something to consider. And remember, they can cloak. And we'll be talking about this more in the next segment of the show. So, in other notes, there's and this might ring a chord for some people, but there's the Ark of the Goddess. Now, you've read in the Bible about the Ark of the Covenant, probably a similar thing, but the Ark of the Goddess it's in the Bermuda Triangle. It's a pyramid, 656 foot tall, and it contains all the essence of this planet, genetic material for life on Earth, human, flora and fauna, bacteria, animals, insects, everything needed for this planet. Many want to destroy it. It's the life support system of the planet as well. It affects the changes of the seasons, the temperatures and tides, and the weather. For example, if it was destroyed, all the volcanoes in the world would erupt at the same time. So the volcanoes are essential, but they need to be kept in check, which is why you see a lot of craft that are around volcano sites. You always see UFOs around volcanoes, and I always wondered why. And this could explain why. So the Ark is also a ship. Before it went to Bermuda, it was in Egypt and was the fourth pyramid of Giza. Now, look up race Kulabush. Kulabush K. Looks exactly like humans, but there are two kinds, masters and slaves. The masters are intellectually and technologically superior. They can actually fly or levitate. Their planet is described as a glamorous Venice. The slaves work for the master without ever seeing them in a world of fire and pain. It's kind of where you get the depiction of hell. So look up race Tricholicus. Looks exactly like humans, but are more technologically developed. Maybe another experiment. Their planet looks much like Earth, but not the surroundings. They do have space traveling ships and capabilities, but they don't travel more than 365 million miles. Distance from Earth to Jupiter when at their closest. So aliens can affect our weather. They can also affect our poles. You know, the Greys have the capacity of rotating our poles. And that's one thing they've threatened to do in the past. So in 1996, Texas had unusually high temperatures. There was also an increase in UFO sightings in the skies over Texas at that time. There's weather interference all over the planet, extreme weather anomalies in Brazil. And that's also when the Virginia ship crash in Brazil happened. And that's actually in the Alien Race book, that particular race. And they were actually abducted and taken under the U.S. government. So, yeah, we don't make friends either. So something to look at. Again, like I said, we're in the middle of 2017. UFOs are on the rise, and we're going to talk about the trumpet sounds here in a little bit too. I think if I took those notes as well. So what's in store for us for the next 5 years? There's a doomsday prophet. This is kind of funny. Named T. Chase, which predicted an alien invasion to kill Putin, September of 2017. He bases this off his own interpretation of Nostradamus and Revelations. That's during our Paracon. Imagine that. So on that note, there's also reports circulating about Biden meeting with Putin to draft an agreement to cooperate towards a missile defense system to fight a mile-wide armada of alien craft coming here in September of 2017 either. Also. So, September might be an interesting month. I guess it's just a wait and see. So I'm going to talk about the Vlash. Here's what I have on the Vlash. Not much is really known about them. But the war going on Earth is a Vlash war. All Vlash hybrids stay on Earth. The Mater hybrids are created for export as they have interest in other areas off Earth. Now remember, and I've said this before, the Earth is not the center of the universe. There's a lot of stuff we don't even know about going off, between alien races off this planet and in other universes that are way more dangerous and have a lot more going on than what goes on here. So the hybrids created for the Mater are exported off our planet to other areas off Earth for natural resources and whatnot. But they're only involved here as Vlash allies, if they are here. So not many of them are here. They're untouchable but stay hidden. Whereas the Mater, on the other hand, are more vulnerable, not by weakness, but there's so many of them they expose themselves and their allies and pawns, including the humans. The Mater attack at night 80% of the time, but do attack during the day as well sometimes. But their hybrids only attack after dark. Now here's the thing about the Mater hybrids. Actually, no, it's the Vlash hybrids. If you see people whose eyes glow, and they're not contacts, that's a Vlash hybrid. And also, and I brought this up when we did the kids paranormal, what to watch for in your kids. If they're actually drawing pictures, art, and things have red eyes, ask them about it. Now, and don't just get panicky because they have red eyes. And maybe your kid only had a red color crayon at the time. You never know. But if it's a common theme, and there's other friends there, I would be asking them, why do they have red eyes? Because spirits can have red eyes, demons can have red eyes, jinn can have red eyes, but so can hybrids. So just something to keep in mind. So the Vlash started the Industrial Revolution and machinery to get more production out of the humans. The battleship they have is called Shellium Colossus III. It is their biggest and most feared. They call it 3 because 2 others were destroyed. Both were destroyed near Jupiter. Now here's what's going to disturb some people. But Vlash have been abducting hundreds of thousands of humans and animals with the purpose of conducting genetic crossbreeding experiments. Now, not all the animals were from Earth, and I'll bring up Chupacabra. I'll bring up Jersey Devil. You can bring up Wendigo. You can bring up Bigfoot's mentioned. Do I believe that? Not entirely. I believe personally Bigfoot's an interdimensional being because you could follow tracks and those tracks disappear. No trees for them to climb, no nothing. Animals don't just disappear. So they do mention that some of these projects were abandoned, the Bigfoot and whatnot. One they actually called the Shuru Kasandakan. Shura means human in Vlash. Uru means animal. Kasandakan means horror in Filipino. That's where these creatures were originally created. They are the perfect shapeshifters. In normal form, they appear human, but in seconds, they can grow fangs, claws, and wings. They can change color, size, texture, anything and everything. In the Philippines, they're known as the Aswang. I'll have more information on the Vlash as I go. That's what I have for now. So the Mater. The Mater have 2 home planets in the constellation Megapi, same height as humans. They're hermaphrodites. They have a lifespan of up to 120 years. They have colonized 26 planets, have abducted at least 5,000 human males. They're considered parasites by other races. They have visited Earth at least 200 times, probably more than that by now. First visitation was during the prehistoric period. Their goal of colonizing Earth has not happened due to the protection from other races, such as the Council of Five. Last sighting was September of 06 in Nome, Alaska. And again, I don't know how current this information is, and based on other information I've gotten, they're here all the time. So I'm sure they've been here much more frequent than this. They have been involved in tragedies throughout human history. Some of the worst plagues were inflicted by them with the knowledge and agreement of the reptilians who want to keep the population under 8 billion. So, the Maters were one ally race of the reptilians. The Maters are the worst race on our planet right now until the other one gets here. They are the same size as the human race, conduct more abductions than any other race. The Nazis were Mater. The second generation Mater ship is out. It's called La Cucaracha, or the Cockroach. The Mater craft are shaped like a U, and the Mater is portrayed in the movie Signs. That's what the Mater looks like. So, the interesting thing about the Mater is their history, because their history is very similar to ours. So 58 million years ago, the Mater were some primitive cave dwellers living like savages on a primitive planet until an advanced race landed there. Now, this advanced race, nobody knows her name. They worked with the goddess, and they were called the Teachers. They made some very, very deadly mistakes, though. They were strong goddess worshippers. They were human in appearance. They were traveling from planet to planet to help less developed races. That was what they did. At that time, the Maters had a lifespan of 700 human years. But to speed up their development, the Teachers changed that to 120. It took 3 generations for them to reach their potential. The Teachers returned every 50 years to assess their development. Now, here's where they made the grave mistake. One, previously the Teachers had helped thousands of other species to develop, and all of them turned out benevolent. Not the Mater. 2, the Mater revealed to be different and were aggressive from the beginning, resisted change, and several times attacked the Teachers. Even after 200 years of constant development, they still remained hostile. They should have been destroyed. I'm sure by all protocols they should have been. So 3, it was a rule among other species doing the same job that if they encountered an obstacle in the normal development, they were supposed to call upon the Jeffuk, which is another race. In cases of obstacles normal development faced, the Teachers didn't do that. That was stupid on their part. The Teachers failed or did not report to assess the origins of the Mater. It was later found that the Mater had been created by alien race Gigantic as hybrids, and they had used their own DNA and that of an unknown reptilian race. The Gigantic abandoned the Mater, 100,000 of them, on that planet when they realized their experiment was a failure. They had planned to create an army of hybrid warriors, but they couldn't control them. So the Teachers were supposed to keep the original Mater they had found with a lifespan of 700 years under constant surveillance, but they failed. The Teachers were supposed to return to the Mater's planet every 25 human years. They failed. And now look what we have today. So the Teachers were unaware that there was also a hostile race visiting the Mater at the same time as them. They were called the Bifin, known enemy of the Romay and the Kurs. Now, these were good races. When the Teachers returned to the planet for the 7th or 8th time, info is not precise on that, the leader of the original Mater was expecting them in a battleship. His name was Akamater. Caught by surprise, the Teacher scout ship was destroyed, immediately followed by their mothership, with the help of hundreds of Bifin ships. Akamater died on that battlefield, fighting a Teacher, who had escaped the mothership. Once that battle was over, they destroyed their planet. After they destroyed their planet, they followed the Bifin around for a few thousand years and learned the art of war. That was stupid on the Bifin's part, too. The Bifin were a warmongering and very violent species and resembled the aliens in the movie Predator. I like using movies for references because movies have a lot of fact in them. So after following the Bifin for a few thousand years and having destroyed their own planet, they went looking for a new planet to conquer. So they headed for Carducci, which was the Bifin's home planet. It took them only 7 Earth days to do it. They'd already started their own hybridization program and called them Project Mater Kip, which means two. They built a 500,000 strong hybrid army, ships included, resembling the teachers as they found them strong and agile and perfect for war. And their appearance was trustworthy for spying uses. The army is composed of different hybrid types, each built with their own tasks, some for flying ships, some for close quarter fighting, so on and so forth. The race that helped them develop their hybrid army was called Ainana. Once the project was finished and the army taken, they turned on the Ainana and their planet and almost made them extinct. Their planet was called Ainana Lopi. We now know it as Mars. Imagine that. So they took over Carducci, the Bifin's home planet, now their home planet, located in constellation Megapi. Most aliens call it Mengapi. We know it as Pegasus. The Mater conquered and colonized 26 planets of their own. Around 1.1 million years ago, the Mater started a new hybridization program called Mater Matera, or Mater Superior. There had been an agreement between the other races that there wouldn't be hybridization programs anymore, but the Mater hadn't been a part of that. They didn't agree to it, but their planet was in a region that they had to agree to the deal. The other races were worried about their plans as they were mixing 3 races into one supreme species that they could control. One of those races was Articulea, the Mentors. So, it was said to be the first race ever. They are one of the smallest known races. Mysterious, and not much is known about them. They didn't live on a planet, but on an artificial satellite that no one knew who built. They were there from the beginning. They don't travel. They don't talk to anyone. They simply live inside these containers with some liquid. Somehow, the Mater was able to get a hold of a bunch of them. So while the other races were discussing what to do about the Mater, who at that time had a cargo ship full of the Articulea, and they didn't want to attack for fear of harming that race, another race attacked the Mater and killed a Mater inside called Magna Senate, the Mater's supreme leader. It was the Anakim who attacked, and they're still paying for it. So all humans, and most not all hybrids, have contracted some form of a disease, either old and less harmful one, the Lucifer created, or the mega one developed by Vlash at Plum Island in the 1940s. The original version, stolen from the Book of Curses, is called Lenti in Christus language. The lighter version of this disease released by Lucifer is called early Lyme disease. We've all heard of this. It's carried by ticks, and it was created by the Vlash on Plum Island. The more powerful version, created by Vlash hybrids in the 1940s at Plum Island, is called chronic Lyme disease. So there's chemtrails sprayed all over the planet by the Vlash, Mater, and their hybrids. There's counter trails that are sprayed by the SDA, the Christus, and the Shambhala in order to stop the effects of the chemtrails on the humans as much as possible. That pretty much closes out all the notes I've got. But with all this talk, and all these notes are brought to you, I think the main points I want you to take home, our history isn't what we know it. I've always thought that. I've never liked religion. I'm pagan. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I'm comfortable calling myself. I follow Morrigan. I follow Keranos. Those are my deities, God and Goddess. So, that's where I have a hard time, though, more or less. Because you got the goddess side, and you got the other ones that follow only a god. And there's no balance. Where is the balance? take everything I say with a grain of salt. Do your own research. If it's comfortable, then if it makes sense, then so be it. I'm only putting out my research notes. A lot of it came from Dante Suntory and his works, which Dante Suntory has since gone completely underground. His sole intention when he came out with his videos, his books, they translated, his artifacts he actually has. He was only looking for 72 hybrids as part of the war. Now, more of his notes are going to come out in future S4 shows. When we do the Bilderberg and the Le Circle show, a lot of the information that comes out of that show is a mix between what the actual Bilderbergs are and Dante notes and other stuff. There's other paranormal stuff that Dante's divulged through ancient text and that kind of thing that we'll be talking about in future shows. But it's a dangerous world we live in. We're in a very unstable window of time with some of these races that are here. And because of that window, we've got more races coming that we don't even know about yet. Watch movies. I encourage you to watch movies. And pick them apart. Pick them apart and figure out where the truth is versus where the lies are. Well, where's the manipulation? What's the fact? I love The Arrival. It's a slow movie, some say. I think it's great. And it also shows what the humans would do if they saw a ship come down. Should we just shoot at it, not knowing who it is or what their motive is? I don't think so. Which leads to my next point with this tonight's show. Because I hate fearmongers. And I don't ever want to be seen as a fearmonger. I want to be one that's bringing you information. That's what I do. Watch the skies. Watch for weird shapes in the clouds. Watch volcanoes. I live by a volcano. I've always heard since the 70s that there was a mothership that hovered over the volcano. You couldn't see it. I believe that now. Because everything is cloaked. If it has like a heat wave looking effect, there's probably something there. That's how a lot of them appear when they're cloaked. Or a digital pattern that's moving, like in the movie Predator. That's also a cloaking mechanism. So what can you do to prepare? Well, get a garden going. Get chickens. You heard my chickens in the background earlier. Get your own eggs. Get as self-sufficient as you possibly can. And get weapons. I ain't talking about firearms. I've got guns. But I'm the first to admit, my bullets aren't, I don't have a constant, invincible supply of bullets. So you got to have a plan B. And never rely on your firearms for your plan A. Blowguns, swords, knives, traps. Know how to survive. That's the key point. And be ready for anything. And your community could be your best friend or your worst enemy. Get your community ready. Because here's the other thing. If shit hits the fan, not only do you have to watch out for your own family, but now you might have your neighbors trying to steal from you and kill you for your stuff. Get your community involved in their own preparation. There's some people out there that ain't going to prepare because, well, they can just go steal your shit and kill you. And that's what they plan on doing. So, know human nature. Know psychology. Know who's going to be the one to attack you and who's going to be your friend that you can trust. Those are some of the keys. Now, when you're looking at survival gear, when you're looking at what do I need to survive, remember, don't rely on batteries. Batteries don't last forever. And if we ever got hit by an EMP or a magnetic pulse, your car batteries, everything is shot. It's back to the dark ages. So some of the stuff that we were talking about actually is last night. Is a Faraday cage. Take you an ammo can from an old Army ammo can and line it with tinfoil. That's a basic Faraday. You can put your computer stuff in there. You can put whatever, and an EMP won't affect it. So that pretty much wraps up tonight. If you have any questions, all my information is on S4 from my phone number to my email to whatnot. Encourage your friends to listen. And of course, Sunday night we're talking jinn with an actual former Muslim that knows the history of jinn, what to look for in jinn, how to remove jinn, and has actually seen jinn catching. So make sure you don't miss that one. Friday, of course, is if you're in Concrete, we're doing our paranormal discussion at 11 a.m. in the morning at Lone Star Restaurant. And Saturday, we're talking UFO investigation and alien abduction. 2 p.m. at Andy's Pizza. So in closing, keep your eyes to the sky. And any questions, any issues, don't hesitate to get hold of me. Have a good night.